African traditional medicines and its contribution to the fight against COVID-19. And it is based on history. It has been passed on from generation to generation. And the postulate that is put across is that it's able to tackle even the most latest crisis using that framework of knowledge. So I think that too is important to pick up Sarah's point about the place of history. Then Professor Swart has also looked at the contradictions in the knowledge generation. And in this particular case, the victims over the centuries have been indigenous communities from who have lost their knowledges into the modern science. And most, as Professor Masavisa, I'm sure is going to demonstrate, that most of these modern medicines have been based on genetic resources and traditional knowledge. The significance of the observation by Professor Swart is the fact that in the South African context, the approach taken is how do we bring in ordinary people with their own knowledge into the modern sector. And so what the colleagues have done is to build up institutional capabilities to support the interaction between the scientists and indigenous communities. And I've known these scholars here, for most of them, over 15 years, and for Professor Neva for over 20 years working in this field. So they are committed people to transformation. And what they will share here is rooted into their struggles to bring African traditional medicines from the margins to the center. And I think they have arrived at the moment. The last point I wanted to raise is that of beneficiation. Just a few weeks ago, 25th and 26th of January, the executive board of the World Health Organization were considering the importance of benefit sharing from the pathogens that are found in developing countries. And the world is divided. The developed world wants to continue to obtain this knowledge and the pathogens for free in the name of being distributed to the rest of the world. But we do not get vaccines for free. We have to pay for them. So this iniquity is contested. And for South Africa, we have put a legislation in place to put an end to it so that biopiracy is brought to an end. So my colleagues that are speaking on the panel, we have three of them, the fourth one has dropped out, will speak into the role of African traditional medicine from being a Cinderella focus into the center, but also pushing the extremes of excellence and relevance for the benefit of the indigenous communities and the society at large. So I would want to introduce Dr. Chabalala, who has been leading the policy and development. He will be the first one to speak. And then there will be Professor Masabisa, who has been in these trenches promoting African traditional medicine, and Professor Neba as well in the same issues. So I hand over to Dr. Shabalala.
Thank you so much, Prof. Sileti. And I'll also like to thank Minister and DG for affording us the opportunity to share our work. And what I will do in terms of my presentation is just to quickly share the framework within which we do our work within the Department of Science and Innovation. I trust you can see my slides. Within the department, we 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, following one of the meetings that we had with our portfolio committee, we were encouraged to come up with a platform, but the platform grew up to be an indigenous knowledge-based bioinnovation program with 6 platforms on medicines, cosmeceuticals, and nutraceuticals. Of course, today, we're focusing only on the natural medicines platform. The platform so far is headed by Professor Matsabisa, who will speak after me at the University of the Free State, but it is made up of universities, science councils, and healers organization, of course, various government departments at various levels, whether national, district, or provincial. Our work is really underscored by the WHO guidelines. So those who always felt that we do mumbo jumbo, our work is really guided by the WHO. And we use transdisciplinarity because wherever indigenous knowledge is concerned, one has to use various knowledge systems. And I must say, as Minister said, that South Africa is providing leadership within the WHO African region, whereby we chair the Regional Expert Committee in African Medicines, and Professor Matsabisa is the chair, but also Professor Galeni is part of that Regional Expert Committee. So this is really the framework within which we work. As I said, is transdisciplinarity. The core of our work is guided by who we are as African people. It's guided by the concept of Ubuntu, in that the base of our work is, of course, African knowledge systems in all its forms. We do integral research and development or discovery, meaning that we use various research methodologies at the same time, trying to decolonize research methodology within the national system of innovation. We do inclusive innovation, meaning that whatever innovations that we come up with, we do this together with the knowledge holders. It's not scientists talking to the knowledge holders, but it's really a consortium of equals, because knowledge is knowledge, regardless of what you have appended before your name. Whenever we find something interesting from the science perspective, we then localize this technology where the knowledge is coming from, and we really organize our knowledge holders and communities into small, medium enterprises, which then get trained through various incubators and accelerators. And we promote conscious commercialization, meaning that with it, there is the principle of green economies and sustainability, since while we're working with the biodiversity. Now, our work needs certain enablers. And in the past 2 years, we managed to establish dedicated units within the Technology Innovation Agency, which then looks into the innovation, the research, development, and innovation funding aspect of our work. And within the IDC, we also have the National Indigenous Products Program, which will then look into manufacturing and SME support, and also looking into the markets for these products. There are other enablers which are very essential, and we are actually at the latter end of setting up a working group within SAPRA, which we trust, with the help of the DG and the Minister, that the Department of Health will really encourage SAPRA to establish a unit dedicated to African medicines. Other countries are doing that. We are the only ones that where we have African medicines at its own home, yet we don't have a unit which is dedicated to policy framework, to evaluation of clinical trials, and registration of these medicines for them to be part of the essential medicines list. We also have a unit which is dedicated to African medicines at the South African Bureau of Standards, which look into the standards from cultivation to good laboratory services, including manufacturing, but now they are really taking on the work of branding our work, and we actually have an Ubuntu-based bioinnovation brand, which will be almost like proudly South African brand, which will go into our products, and also various incubators and accelerators, as I said, like the Innovation Hub, which then help us in terms of the enterprise development training of the knowledge holders in the communities. We do what we do for this. We want to really use the land in a productive manner, but really address the triple challenges, whilst at the same time improving the quality of life of our people. The vision that we have, Minister, is that we feel that it's important that government invest more on indigenous knowledge-based innovation linked to enterprise development. Already these products are out there. Already these products are on the market. And us as government, we are the market. The hospitals, the schools, the prisons. There is no way in which we can't find market for these things in our own country, but also internationally. Secondly, we're working on the framework to come up with the African Natural Medicines Institute, but of course there will be other branches like on cosmeceuticals and nutraceuticals and health infusions, because all these products are actually linked to health and wellness. And the long-term vision that we have is that we should then start pulling together some of the pilots that we have in terms of manufacturing. We need to pull this into world-class plant-based industries and manufacturing industries, co-owned by the healers and the communities. Like this is how we're going to reverse poverty in our country. So I will really hand back to Prof so that the two professors then talk more in terms of the research that we're doing and using this project.
Professor Masabisa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sileti. I see that Dr. Ang's presentation is still on, but also I think Minister and Deputy Minister, Dr. Kalua, DG and the DDGs, panelists, and the participants. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. What I want to share with you, I don't know whether we can remove Dr. Chabalala's screen and then maybe project what I want to talk about. Well, what I want to say is, we know the importance of vaccines and how they have played key roles in the disease prevention, including also how they have played, I think, key roles in the eradication. What's important is these vaccines start somewhere, and we know that most of the vaccines, I don't know whether I can share my screen, Professor Sileti, these vaccines start somewhere, and some of those vaccines, they start from plant. These are plant-based vaccines, and therefore we should in fact begin to say, how then could we utilize, I think, the plant knowledge that we have. But also more importantly, what I want to share is really the equity in research. That in medicine, we know that not one single, I think, therapeutic would be effective for a particular disease. We are seeing that a lot of, I think, interventions are put in place to fight just one common disease. And therefore, we want then, I think, to say to government that instead of focusing too much effort again on one aspect in development, which may have its own challenges, we should in fact have an equitable, I think, distribution of resources towards the development of other therapeutics. What I want to then share with you is then today to really talk about how then do plants, I think, contribute, to COVID, but I will use, in fact, the phases of the COVID, disease to indicate, I think, where into such, research. COVID that are related to COVID. And now this is what I'm sure of, I think, the disease, COVID, where you'd actually start off with your viral replication, and then thereafter you have your immune, I think, host inflammatory responses, your cytokine responses, and here different therapeutics and different drugs work differently. Vaccines would be starting right at the beginning in the end, where in fact you are trying to prevent the infection. But we see, in fact, at the bottom here that all your antiviral drugs, do actually only work at the beginning of the disease. Once the disease progresses, those drugs are ineffective. They do not work. So therefore, that in fact, at the height of the disease, where you are looking at a phase of sort of a 3 disease, where you have severe pneumonia, where the disease severity as a